Here today representing the constituents of my district, just like when I voted no on the legislation on the House floor back in January. While there were a million reasons to vote no on this bill, certainly one of the biggest issues I and many of my colleagues had was the firearm registry requirement. I want to be clear that we know this public hearing is taking place because the governor and his radical left agenda. He and his Democrat legislators passed this bill and then laid it at your feet to have to deal with it. I support law enforcement unapologetically, and we know this is not your fault. However, there are questions that need to be answered. I understand that you may not be able to answer these questions for mine and others. However, we have an expectation to get those answers in a reasonable length of time. What is the reasonable length of time that we should expect those answers, and in what manner or form will they come in?
We are in receipt of questions from JCAR, and we are also in receipt of questions coming in through our public comment portal, and we are going to endeavor to have answers to those questions before the JCAR December meeting. Hopefully that will be possible. If not, it will definitely be in January, but our goal is to answer them by December.
So just to be clear, going into the JCAR meeting in December, we will get those answers back email, they'll be on the website. How will we know that we'll have answers to that going into the JCAR meeting?
Well, we will at least respond to the people that submitted the questions, but I believe we will likely put many of those answers on our website as well.
Okay. So here's the questions I have for you today. What happens when hundreds of thousands of gun owners are non-compliant overnight and they're just otherwise totally law-abiding citizens? What is going to be their punishment for non-compliance?
Sir, my intent is to take down your questions and provide.
Okay, I mean, I can submit these later in writing so that we don't, I'm looking for a response.
Okay, so my initial response would be that we will turn to the bill, and I believe the bill sets forth penalties for failure to file your endorsement affidavit, and so it will be up to each individual state's attorney in the 102 counties to decide how they will enforce that.
Yeah, so the question remains, what are the penalties?
We'll look it up. Okay, I'll look it up.
Okay. How will this registry be used as a source to later seize firearms from individuals?
The Illinois State Police is not aware of any intent to do so.
This legislation is still under a legal challenge, as is similar legislation in other states. What happens if it's declared unconstitutional and someone has already been punished?
Can you repeat your question? I apologize.
The legislation is still under a legal challenge, as it is in other similar legislation in other states. What happens if it is declared unconstitutional and someone has already been punished?
Well, I think that will depend upon the state's attorney of the county and the courts in those counties and how they handle that. Those issues won't be up for the Illinois State Police to decide.
Okay.
I apologize. I said I don't believe those things will be up for the Illinois State Police to decide. I think that will be up to the state's attorneys and the courts of the various counties throughout the state of Illinois.
Also, if this is overturned, will the registry be destroyed?
I can't answer that. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I would assume that if the law is ruled unconstitutional, we would be directed by a court on how to handle that.
Will the confiscated weapons be returned?
If the law is ruled unconstitutional and a weapon has been confiscated, I would think that the law enforcement would be required to return it. But again, those are not things that will be decided by the state police unless we have confiscated the firearm.
So I guess that's the question when it gets back to the enforcement and things like that that's being discussed today. I appreciate the Illinois State Police hosting these hearings. I think the consensus, however, will ring louder than is possible in any hearing room. Hundreds of thousands of people will absolutely not comply. It is up to the governor and the legislature to truly decide if they're prepared to declare war on law-abiding gun owners or not. One thing will be certain, this we will defend: the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Thank you, guys.
Sir, I wasn't trying to put you off. In response to your question about the penalties, It is on FAQ number 15, and the first offense for failure to file an endorsement affidavit is a Class A misdemeanor.
FAQ
15.
And then the next step is what? Is let's go
first
through the progression
The first
of that.
offense is a Class A, second and subsequences are Class 3 felonies.
So again, the question is, what is the definition of first offense and subsequent offenses after that?
Okay, again, that's going to be up to the state's attorney in the courts, but typically that would mean that you have to have a conviction for the first offense before it would move on to a second offense.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. No further questions.